here we go again. We're on the Blueprint podcast. It's tech insights for today's busy decision makers. My name's Tim Hancock. I'm here with my co-host
Daniel Meany. I'm Services CTO.
And we have two esteemed guests with us today. So let's hand it over to the guests to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, it's John Davis. I'm Head of Software Engineering Services for BGSS.
Thanks. My name's Raj. Raj Lewis, so Head of Services Strategy Go-to-Market, but background in product and innovation.
Cool. And you guys you've got some really interesting chat today. Mm-hmm. And you call it Engineer for Value, I think.
Yep.
That's the title. So can you tell me a little bit more about that, please?
So I guess if we start with what we're seeing on the ground with our teams and on our clients, and kind of what common questions are coming up that we're often facing, is clients are asking us often about digital products, digital platforms to drive value and competitive advantage in net new ways. And typically what we've seen, I guess, over the last last years of digging into this is that value and that competitive advantage has been driven by 5 business outcomes. So these digital products and digital platforms are helping our clients to launch faster. So this is able to get new products, new services in the hands of the customer really, really quickly. And that gives them advantage of first mover advantage and also collecting revenue a lot quicker than kind of slower competitors. It's also about generating greater user value. So through new digital, personalized, data-driven customer experiences, how do we really drive that loyalty that keeps customers coming back to us, and we're driving that kind of long-term lifetime customer value. But it's also about reducing risk, right? So with greater stability, security, is making sure that we have those robust platforms that don't fall down and we don't have the data leaks. So that's 3. So 4 and 5 are improving flexibility and adaptability. So once we've got something built, how quickly can we change? Can we adapt? Can we sense? And this is reacting to what's happening in the market. So it could be regulation change, it could be geopolitics, it could be new customer needs, new competition. So we need the ability to be kind of fleet of foot with the things that we're building. And all of this with predictable delivery, increased revenue, low operating costs, is about maximizing the ROI that we're getting from our tech spend. And everybody at the moment is talking to us about how do we do more with less? Where's the ROI of our technology spend? And engineering for value is all about driving that ROI.
I love that. That's a really good kind of summation, isn't it? Engineering for value. And then just in terms of bringing this to life a bit, George, can you just give us an example?
So I'll give you 2.
Yeah.
2 examples from tech giants, very popular, everyone would know them. So first one, Netflix. So they actually get about 75% of their views come from personalized recommendations. So, when you're watching something, it's, you might like this, or, we've lined this up next. 75% of people continue with that recommended watch. So that's a demonstration of how we can build hyper-personalized customer experiences that are all based on data and driving that customer experience that drives engagement, which ultimately leads to loyalty, which is why they're the biggest streamer in the world. Yeah. But that value is underpinned by really rigorous engineering and quality decisions. So Netflix, they're very famous for using a suite of chaos tools that help them to scenario test, to kind of stretch and kind of pull, twist, and push their platforms in different ways to make sure that they've got the reliability and the scalability that makes them kind of really high availability streamer and number 1 in the world. So that's Netflix. Second example is WhatsApp. So this was pre-acquisition. In the early days of having only 50 engineers, they were able to support sending over 55 billion messages a day, over 1 billion users, which is staggering for only 50 engineers. Yeah. And again, what enabled them to deliver that value with such a small, lean team is, one, they were hyper-focused on product. So they were ruthlessly prioritizing on what makes us the best messaging business in the world. And then secondly is having the right infrastructure and the technology underneath them that enables them to scale efficiently and effectively with those small teams. So these 2 examples are really a good example of how we tie business value and superior outcomes, market leadership, with amazing engineering that supports it. And the 2 go hand in hand seamlessly.
I mean, that is really interesting, but it does beg the question, why isn't everybody a WhatsApp or a Netflix?
Or maybe I could take that one.
Yeah.
So if we take some of those business outcomes that Raj was talking about, if you think about getting to market fast, Well, we see a lot of people starting from scratch too many times, whether that's from a product or an engineering point of view, and that's obviously just going to elongate that time that it's going to take to get that to market. That includes the decision making. Often it isn't just the writing of the code, it is actually, well, what tech stack shall we use? That decision making can take a surprising amount of time, which means that you're just not out the gate fast enough. Okay. And then there's incremental speed, right? So there's how quickly can we get future features out there? And often it's understandable, but a company will prioritize, I guess, the next thing at the expense of paying down some technical debt. And after a while, the system just gets more clunky and slow, and it's going to prevent those next features getting there. So it's not that they don't have the right intent, but over time it just gets slower and slower. Another one there about, I guess, why aren't companies delighting the client? Well, some of the worst examples that we've seen, I suppose, could be where there just isn't the rigor around quality, whether at the engineering level or at the quality assurance and finding whether things are working. And obviously that leads to the headlines that we see with the post office, where a system that's built just isn't fit for purpose, obviously resulting in, like human cost, postmasters going to jail, even suicide, and huge billions of pounds are going to have to be paid out. So these are when you don't get the engineering right, the costs are high. And then another example would be, not thinking about the user enough. I mean, even when it's gone well, like a Sonos, right, where you're in a good position, but then through a combination of not thinking enough about what features the client wants, and then the engineering that goes with it for the ones that you are delivering it, the cost is massive, right? You see that 500 million gone from their market cap, a lot of the board resigning. Like this is pretty bad.
I was even going to cancel my Sonos stuff after.
Were you?
But yeah, totally. So one of my friends he was a massive big fan of Sonos, and obviously they did that feature change and everything just stopped working. It was just crazy, and he was saying, "Don't buy it." And I'd already put a big order in for loads of Sonos kits.
It just shows you can't become complacent, even when you are going well. You get the engineering wrong, and the impact is massive. Yeah. And then the final example I was going to give was clearly if whatever you've built isn't available, it doesn't matter what you've built, right? So if you aren't thinking enough about resiliency, observability, making sure that you know that things either could go wrong or won't go wrong before your customer does, then your system is just not going to be there. And in I guess in the tech world, we talk about the number of nines, like how available is this? But in business language, it's, well, what if it's down during Black Friday? Yeah. What if it's down during the Grand National, these like key events where a company is looking to make a lot of its revenue? So again, a lack of focus on the basics of engineering, they're causing some really negative business outcomes.
So it sounds like Engineer for Value is our approach to address this. Do you want to go into a bit more detail about how you might address some of those?
Yeah, sure. We've got lots of levers that we look at to pull to kind of drive towards those business outcomes. And if I start with, I guess, some of the more technical ones, we've really looked at accelerators. So we talked about not starting with a whiteboard, not starting from scratch. Obviously, we've been in the lucky position to have been in business for over 30 years and have like codified a lot of that experience now into patterns, ways of working, but also lines of code. That means that our teams now can get out of the blocks really fast. And that's a combination of, I know, Danny, actually you've been looking yourself at getting the developer onboarded as quick as possible. Like this can sometimes take even months, and I know that we've been getting that down to like minutes with the common components that we think they'll need. So whether that's like a front end React app, or whether it's a microservice, just getting out the gate really fast is making a big difference. The other area that we really focus on is, we talk a lot about CI/CD, but true continuous deployment and the ability to get that cycle time from idea to production to be as short as possible. And we've put, like huge amounts of efforts into the tech around infrastructure as code, around ephemeral environments, around blue-green, and of course the automated testing that needs to go with that, so that we can have these incredibly short cycles, meaning that when product have an idea, can we do this? There isn't a tech person going, yeah, that'll be in the release in a few months' time. It's like, well, I know that for some of our clients, we've got that down to under an hour from when the code's finished to getting it into production, allowing us to get, whether it's features, bug fixes, A/B test, things they're like, up to 10 times a day. So that kind of focus on continuous deployment makes a massive difference to those business outcomes.
And in terms of the all those kind of benefits from a technical perspective, do the business owners, line of business owners, product owners, do they recognise the real value of that as well in your kind of recent conversations? Do they see the value of all this extra work we've done to make things go a bit faster?
I think it's a real mix, and that's ultimately what the topic of Engineer for Value is not just doing the engineering and claiming engineering success, but having it tied into the business. And I think it's really fair to say that some are starting with these business outcomes and some are not. And that's why we're trying to really link the two together. Just to cover a couple of other levers, one of them is the operating model, that combination of people, process and technology. Obviously, we've got our enterprise agile approach, but it's particularly, one of the example I would give is, you can't make one change without thinking about that, how that changes other parts of the system. We see a lot of people moving to product teams, platform teams, but if you haven't got an architecture that allows that team to own its own area, to be able to build, test and release that independently, you'll have made one change, but you won't get the benefit. So that's something that we put a huge amount of effort to.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? Because it's a symbiotic relationship, and it isn't immediately obvious that one benefits the other directly. I think the other thing that's really interesting that is the kind of underpinning thing is you're creating momentum all the time, whether it's value quickly or it's being able to deliver faster. All of those things are ways of accelerating and creating momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately a theme of a lot of this is pace, removing blockers. So in fact, I'll come on to the next one. It's a nice example, right? You'd expect us to talk about AI. I will talk about AI, right?
Who doesn't?
Exactly. But if you haven't got the op model right and the basics, you'll be trying to accelerate, and you won't have taken the brakes off. You've got those constraints. But it is a lever, obviously, to improve productivity, efficiency. But you have to dive into it, but you can't just give your developers these GitHub licenses and Copilot licenses and say, well, we're done. First of all, they use it in very different ways. A lot of it is debugging or understanding the code base. So you really try and understand how these people will use the tools to deliver this outcome. And second of all, although I'm talking about the engineering bit, like everybody benefits. So across the entire software delivery lifecycle, getting these AI tools into the product, the business analysis, the designers, to see how that can make a big difference to this kind of the productivity, the amount of stuff that you can release. And then the last one I was just going to say was that availability, like making sure that this is a resilient platform. Obviously, we're cloud native, making sure that you are using the accelerators, like we have a cloud EXP one, to ensure you're getting the most out of that resiliency, combined with the observability, a real focus on understanding not just what it means from a technical point of view when something dies, but what's the business impact? If a queue or a database is unavailable, what does that mean to the business? What business capability have you lost? And then that way you can respond much faster and ensure that you have a much more highly available system, so that when you've built a good system for your clients or users, that it's there for them to use.
Okay, that's been really interesting.
John really nicely positioned the technical parts of Engineer for Value, and absolutely engineering and what the engineers are doing and kind of the product teams are doing is critical, but it's not the only part, right? So it's not just about the engineering. What we want to make sure is that what happens upstream and downstream of engineering is considered to make sure that we're actually really capturing the full value. And what I mean by that is upstream is making sure that we have the right product strategy, we have the right customer strategy, augmented with design thinking. We understand what they want, who they are, what they need, how we're delivering value for the customer, how we're competing in a competitive market, if that's your industry and that's your field. But also anything that we're building, products or platforms, they're connected with the technology strategy of the business and the enterprise architecture. So it's all kind of fitting in and seamless as part of that kind of broader jigsaw. So that's upstream. We're doing the right thing, right? So we're building the right thing that's going to deliver value to the customer, to the business. We then hand that over with John's levers that he's mentioned, where then we have kind of a world-class delivery machine that's at the coalface of doing this. And then downstream is making sure that we're thinking about how we land and how we implement any of the products or services that we're building into the hands of the customers or the users, and that might be employees, it might be internal within the business. So how are we thinking about implementation, adoption, uptake? Because largely, a lot of the times is the employee or the user or customer is the mediator between how we actually release value. So what are they doing differently by using your products and services that's generating value? Are they making smarter decisions? Are they buying different things to get economies of scale? Are they improved scheduling, et cetera? So how are we giving those kind of insights to employees to make better decisions? But it's also thinking about the value. I'm going to mention this last, but it's actually something that we think about end to end. So have we started by discovering for value? Where's the value in the system that we want to identify and to tap? And then how do we go about targeting it? We then kind of build something, we release it as an attempt to try and target the value. But what are the right metrics and the measures to make sure that we are identifying value, we're doing the benefit management, and also we kind of have health check metrics on the system to make sure that we are going in the right way. So it's making sure we have the right data, we have the right metrics to ensure that we're continuously improving and moving the dial in the right direction continuously, and we can do that kind of with the suite of metrics that we put in place. Anything else on metrics, John? Because I know that's been a key topic for you.
It's such an important lever, and yet it's sometimes one of the hardest ones to land, because implicitly people go, but does it make it better by you telling me what something is? It's the behavioural changes that go with it. There's that classic anecdote about the two woodcutters, and one takes his lunch break, but he's cutting down more trees. And the other guy goes, well, how are you doing that? He said, well, I go and sharpen my axe. And it's that without that focus, delivery trumps everything, and everybody just drives towards delivery and things get worse. And metrics can help you realize where things might be getting worse, to pause, continuous improvement. If you are not improving, things are getting worse. So that
keeps you on track, I guess.
Yeah.
And I love the analogy of the kind of looking at it from an end-to-end perspective, and you've got something during the project as well to kind of keep you on track.
Yeah.
Exactly. Metrics, again, alignment, simple understanding of what's the board level metrics, what's the engineering metrics, means that you never get into a position kind of as we started this with, which is, so what have we gained from this engineering? Metrics and measures keep alignment between the business and engineering.
Because I guess the challenge for any tech buyer talking to a CEO or CFO is they just speak different languages, don't they?
Exactly. And what we're trying to do is map engineering into the 5 outcomes that we started. So everything should be, we're getting our product out the door faster, we've reduced the risk, we've made more money, the ROI is X, and to translating all engineering metrics into business metrics.
And I guess that person that your stakeholder on the client side is, you make them look like superstars, I guess.
That is the goal.
That's the goal. Okay, that's really interesting. So can we wrap this up then, John? Can you kind of give us a quick summary? Bearing in mind we're talking to these busy decision makers, they are going to be thinking, I've loved what John and Raj have just said, but summarise it for us.
Yeah, I think the summary is the digital products and platforms are at the heart of delivering business value. The engineering ultimately is that pivotal part that's either going to amplify the value or destroy it, so take it seriously. We identified lots of levers, mixture of engineering but also people and process there. Make sure you take a holistic view to it, and I think we can paraphrase all of that by the name of our offering, which is Engineer for Value.
Good, guys, thank you very much.